Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another discussion stream for the new units that have just come out. This time we'll be covering a new semester campaign part 1 of the 2023 batch. So there will be a part 2 eventually, but for now we'll just deal with these 4 units as well as the AR that came out from Andvari shop. Joining me today is Harvey Kais.
Hello.
Hey. You might want to speak up a bit. But there's also Housamo rejoining us today.
Hello. I'm also here again.
Yet again. And lastly, Zalgus joining us.
Oh, but I don't get it again, do I?
Well, it's been a while, so it's more like a reunion.
Fair enough, I rise from the dead.
Yes, he certainly does. So, I hope the rest of you are also rising from the dead. With that said, let's just go jump into the discussion. Oh, Jean Rivera and Gian, let's do this. So, today we'll be starting off with... Why don't I not expect me starting first? But yeah, we're going to be talking about the AR first, that released a little while back. So this is the new Missionaries AR that released from Andvari shop. It's the seasonal AR, and so as expected, it is a booster that functions on support slot. What is the new thing it is boosting this time? It is going to be unit EXP. That is to say, from a starting rate of 10% up to 25%. In addition to this feature, it also gives a decent attack boost or attack stat boost of 800, and it lets you heal at an 80% rate, 300 HP when maxed. So this AR does have quite a few limitations to who it can be equipped on. So the Missionaries, there's actually not that many despite it being a guild that's supposedly the largest guild canonically in the game. And it can also be equipped on blow units, which isn't great for the healing functionality for the most, and it can also be equipped on mobs. So this AR is, somewhat surprising, somewhat unsurprising, since they have been doing new booster ARs that have just been acting redundant to other existing booster ARs, such as the new token booster we got for the summoners when we already had a token booster with crafters. But it stacks with each other, so this will certainly speed up your leveling within dungeons in particular, if you actually care about efficient dungeon leveling. So this does affect 3 different aspects of dungeon leveling, actually. Because it can be, because of its restrictions, it can only be equipped on one of the mentors that exist right now, and that would be a Varga. So if you care about mentor runs where everyone has the maximum amount of EXP boost, then you will naturally equip this AR, which boosts the 20%, to Varga's 3-star, which boosts EXP by 10% because of his mentor skill. In addition to this, you may also want to do cohort runs, which is just a thing I call when you're bringing a bunch of lower rarity units or high ratings, but essentially you're leveling them all at the same time rather than leveling up one at a time. And in some cases it can be more efficient than just individually leveling units with the EXP pooling AR. So traditionally with the Beast Tamers AR, which boosts EXP by 25% just like this AR, you would bring someone like Valentine Kengo or Halloween Toji or a particular dungeon to carry the rest of your units which are not built. And this AR does unlock some potential for more solo carries for cohort runs. So you can, for example, bring this with River Shiva, at least for the first few turns, he'll blow everything up, and he should get his charge, his all range back from his charge fairly quickly. You may also want to consider bringing it with a Balor 4 as well, since he also refreshes a bunch of buffs on himself. But yeah, besides these features, you may actually just want to use this AR for its effect, healing. So healing in itself, generally as a lifesteal effect or on-hit ability, isn't usually guaranteed. So 80% is actually decent in relation to the rest of the healing effects in the game. And it is not great with blow units, so you'll most likely be wanting to equip it on units with a weapon change to something larger, or for the Missionaries that just have native larger range. And this one can include units such as Maria with her magic range. She's actually already functioning as a healer for her other allies and a partial healer for herself on phase start, but this will actually let her function more like a proper heal tank. There's also the new unit, Girmikla, who is natively below range, but extends to match range. Not that it matters, since he is also a missionary, apparently. So yeah, he can get a bunch of healing done with that, and apparently he has some decent healing effects natively as well, on charge anyways. Then there's all of Gabriel's cards, whether it's her Valentine cards or her base cards. She's already a healer, and she's in match range, so get that done if you want. And you may also want to equip this on Zabania's either regular card or his fashionista card, since he does act as a tank in his fashionista card, and in his regular card he wants to be hit anyways. You may also want to equip it again on some units like River Shiva if you want to go for tanking with Shiva for whatever reason. But there are options to actually use the healing in a way that is substantial for sure. Because 300 HP doesn't seem like much, but the moment you're hitting more than 2 units, it's going to be more than any other healing buff in the game, so it's pretty decent, especially if you can get something like combo off with it. But yeah, those are all my thoughts on this AR. What do you guys think about it?
I hate this art so much. Why can't Jacob get any good content?
I mean, not a fan of Yasify Jacob?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the artwork, but that aside, I think it's neat that we get another AR for Mentor runs. I think now that we can get like a bit over 1 million XP per run now, which is nice. If you bring all your mentors and XP increasing ARs, I mean.
Do you mean 100k XP?
Oh yeah, 100k. Okay. Was the old number like 96k or 92k? I forgot.
It was 96, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
This AR, I don't really like hate the art that much, but I also don't really care about Zap and Jacob, so I don't really have a bias there. I don't really care about the heal steal effect, HP steal effect. It's just okay. I think the metas went really far into just pure offense that an HP steal isn't really that exciting.
Yeah, even after the best tank in the game, like Team Delos's, heal tanking is not super relevant, so I can see what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's I thought about equipping it on Takemi Nikata and just using Summer Oz with him, right? And then at that point, you might as well just equip that Summoner's Limit AR and just clear the map instead of worrying about healing and stuff. So yeah, that's just my perspective.
Yeah, right now it's not in a good place, but if they do decide to release more high difficulty quests with survival mechanics and something that's not just instantly you can blow up, this AR might be useful in the future. But as it stands now, it's not really relevant for most content. But for what it does, just because it's not the best option doesn't mean it's not great at doing the option that it's choosing to do. So healing is an option, it's just not the best option, but for what it does when it heals, it's pretty good. Oh, I forgot to show something, which was not this one. This demonstration or booster guide can show you how it compares to the rest of the EXP boosters in the game. Unfortunately, it's not updated with this AR itself because Harvey lost the original guide apparently. But yeah, as you can see, it matches the Beast Tamer's AR. It works exactly the same as that, just a different effect and different restrictions. Sorry, were you saying something else?
I was gonna say Echo could be a decent user of it. She does have to get hit anyway, and she already has innate sustain, but she changes into all range anyway, so might as well have her pop her guts and then just have her hit the entire board and heal. So she could do that too.
Yeah, that would be an excellent combination, especially because it's it has healing, and as we know, both healing or CP effects are things that scale well with just multiple rolls. So it's not like a buff where you can only get once. You can just add infinitum, stack this as much as you want with all range and combo. So very strong pair if you actually care about going the heal tank strategy.
Is there a chat link?
Oh, right. Let me fetch the link for you guys. Chatteroni.
I never use the chat link. I always just watch the stream.
I mean,
it's like a waste to watch the stream when the
Waste of your
we're doing the
bandwidth.
call. Yeah. I mean, I like pause the stream, but it's like, yeah.
That's fair enough. All right, I've shared the link with you. So if that's it from all you guys, I'll just read out the comments and then we'll move on. Yo, welcome Prisma and Jerbear. Soon I'll have to split my team for EXP and AR tokens. Yeah, I generally have just a team, or most of my teams are just putting everything in EXP boosting when it comes to mentor runs for level seeding units. For the most, it's going to be a mixture of like AR tokens, boosters, and EXP boosters. And I even have one team dedicated to, just when I've leveled everyone, just boosting tokens, which is obviously going to be a team that's just the easiest to work with. But yeah, the art is amazing, and we certainly do need more win conditions. Alright, since that's all the comments, we'll just move on to the next topic. This will be covered by Harvey Kais. That's it.
Alright, so we're talking about Nobumichi, who is a unit, and his role kind of switches depending on if you're using his 3-star or his 4-star. And both of them are kind of mediocre at the jobs, but I'll get into that later. So in his 3-star version, I think his most notable trait is his ability to apply crit to himself when he's at full HP after he moves, which is kind of neat, especially when he's paired with the rage that he gets from phase start. So you'll get like an immediate attack with a lot of damage. The major downside, of course, being that he has to move for it and he's stuck in slash range, and also that he does need to be at full HP, so you can't repeat it, especially when he decreases his HP on enemy turn start, unless you're like really blitzing through these quests without like them attacking back. And after he moves, he kind of switches between like pushing enemies into his line of fire, which doesn't really help him, considering that one square to the left and one square to the right of him are already in a slash range. But I guess they will help his backline attack. And he also has his shitty Dog Warrior Blessing skill after being hit.
Of
I guess
course.
it's just in every Hikenshi 3-star. He also removes a buff after attacking to hit units at 80%. It's after attacking, so he won't really make use of it himself, but if you're like removing a defensive buff from an enemy, that'd be nice for your allies to follow up on. And of course, his CS is I don't think his CS changes that much across his rarities, but he applies Stigma to hit units and gets increased recovery for him and nearby allies. And it's nice that we're getting this increased recovery status more often. It doesn't really help him that much, because he's just kind of... I think the only thing that applies for him is the
Blessing.
heal.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Increased recovery doesn't... I was trying to read the status. Blessing doesn't really work on it because it's only for health increasing skills, and Blessing is at status. So it only helps his backline heal on enemy turn start. And 1k healing is like alright, but like I don't think it's going to matter too much because he doesn't have any defensive skills to go along with it. But like in terms of 3-star damage dealers, he'll be sort of okay if you can like keep his health up. But again, moving to get crit on a slash range unit is like not that great. And that's all my thoughts for this 3-star.
Alright. What do you guys think then?
You want to talk about the 3-star? Just the 3-star, like Ara.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, like we're we were just about to move to the 4-star. Like,
Wait, that was all the... Oh, okay. Yeah,
that was
sure.
just all the 3-star.
Alright, you can talk about the 4-star now. I thought you were okay, good. I'm confused. I'm done. Good.
Alright, his 4-star changes to thrust range, which is kind of a downgrade, but maybe I just hate using that weapon range. He gets position and depth resistance for himself, which is alright, but like, if he ever gets possessed, I don't think he's gonna be doing that much damage anyways. So his role kind of changes in his 4-star because after moving, instead of crit, he gets evasion now. And this is at a 100% rate, so if you can keep him up, he'll basically have 100% evasion every turn. Which is kind of a meme. It's not going to be useful in every quest, obviously, but... he'll also now give Blessing Strengthening to allies behind him. And I think he shares his status with Christmas Jurong, where if they have Blessing, they'll take 0.3 times as much damage. So it's pretty nice for a defensive skill. He'll also now grant his allies evasion after attacking at 40% rate, which isn't great considering his weapon range is thrust, so he'll only roll for it twice and so it's not that reliable. I think one of the most interesting parts of his kit now is his weapon change none after he gets hit. So this only lasts one turn to the enemy that's hitting him, but for every ally that they attack after that, your allies will take 0 damage because of the weapon none multiplier. This is at a 50% rate, so it's not the most reliable tool, but like, I guess if you run something like Smoky God, you can guarantee that your team takes no damage for one turn. It also increases the enemy HP by 100. I'm not sure why he does that. Maybe it's some lore thing that I'm missing. So this unit's kind of impractical for defense because he needs full health and he also needs to move, and he has like no horizontal movement by himself, and also the fact that he constantly drains his own health per enemy turn start. So you'll have to like keep healing him to have evasion uptime, because besides evasion, he has like no defensive skills for himself. Which means that if you don't get evasion, he's going to pop. Like, he doesn't even have phase start guts or whatever to fall back on. And I don't like using him a lot because, aside from the fact that he doesn't have horizontal movement, he also doesn't resist any useful debuffs. So if you run against like any flat damage or damage over time effects or any immobilizing effect, he's just kind of screwed. Oh yeah. And one last thing I forgot to mention is his copy all buffs to allies behind him. This effect is kind of baity, because there's no good like selfish turn start effects that he can really copy. And if there's a unit that can like make him do damage or make him really tanky, then I don't think you really need to use Nobumichi in the first place. You can just kind of run that unit and be fine, and use someone more useful. His CS doesn't really change that much, it just does more damage, and the increased recovery range is larger now.
He doesn't really have a way to cut his charge anyways either.
Yeah. So overall, kind of a weak defensive unit, like compared to the likes of even like 3-star Daikoku or Marco.
Yeah, maybe. Has a slightly different function though as a frontliner. Did you have any other thoughts?
Right. I don't think he has too many good units to pair with. Maybe you can use like Marduk if you want to like play around the pushing skill. But yeah, other than that, I think he's supposed to be like a really good pair for the next Akenshi that will be released in like maybe a year or so, since that's going to be snipe and he can follow up with his push skill. Since Nobu's still thrush range, so he can't really reach the last tile for his push one square left, one square right thing. Which is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
I think they're going too far with these lore synergy things, if you ask me. But I'll get more on that later.
They don't generally do it. They've only really done it for the Kenshis. But just letting you know, Harvey.
Really?
Oh well, I guess there's synergy between primarily just Tanatomo and Yasuyori, but supposedly according to Luther, there's also synergy between Masanori and Yosho, which, I mean, sure, okay, you say so.
I mean, I'm only saying this because the unit I have has the worst instance of this. Well, I say worse as if it's bad, but it can be bad in one way. Well, more on that later.
Also, Harvey, sorry if you are a bit confused and kind of left in the dust of why we aren't really talking that much. It's kind of generally formatted where we wait for, you know, the lead speaker to say all their thoughts first that they've prepared, and then we do the discussion section where we just share our takes from there. So if you're kind of just hoping for us to jump in, sorry about that.
Oh, no, I just take a while to like resume my thought process after I say some stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you gave your thoughts on the kit. Was there any other thoughts on recommendations, things like that, of food ring, what to equip, stuff like that?
There's not a whole lot of ARs that are good for him besides like the resource boosters. I guess you can equip the Licho Furufume AR if he's like copying a bunch of buffs and maybe he can generate some CP, but yeah, there's not a whole lot you can bring that can make him too useful.
That's kind of sad considering his entire kit is designed around partnering with a specific unit, but okay. It's not like I disagree. Well, anyways,
I think
good.
I think Masashi has to be like the best snipe unit we've seen to make Nobumichi useful. Otherwise, it's just like whatever, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see in God knows how long. Anyway, if that's all your thoughts, did you guys, Zalgus and Milk, have any other thoughts on this unit?
Okay, I'll go first. Oh. I spoke at the same time. Yeah, I haven't really tried Nobumichi in practice. He's just kind of like there in my farming quest. Because I have to use like Kersha and he just like does damage. I think it's kind of nice that Rage Plus came back. And also the fact that these skill timings, enemy turn start, and the asymmetrical skills came back, even though they're kind of like garbage. But at least like LifeWonders actually knows that these timings exist still for unit kits. I can foresee some kind of meme using him. I was thinking of like maybe partnering with him with like, Shimurg to get like regeneration. Maybe some like snipe unit like Valentine Seth or Summer Akiha for damage. But yeah, I don't think he's like really that easy to use or practical. And for ARs, maybe like have that Anniversary Summoners AR for phase start healing. And what else was there? Oh, that meme Suzuka Tetsuwa's AR for rolling evasion to Nobumichi himself if he can't get the HP up to 100%. So yeah, that's all I thought.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't used him much myself, although I do think yeah, his 3-star damage is actually quite high. He's like 20k, which for a 3-star is kind of very impressive. Although I do wish they didn't give him rage, because it just makes it even harder to keep his damage up, because he doesn't have evasion, so he's going to get hit, and since he has rage instead of rage plus, he's going to get absolutely blasted by whoever hits him, unless someone else is defending him, which is ironic considering what he is being touted as. But yeah, it's easy enough to keep his 4 stars HP up to spam evasion, because you're going to be taking 700 plus single digit damage because of the evasion, but his 3-star is probably going to get hit and die, which is a shame. But I don't know, there's probably some way to make it so that he doesn't just immediately die and actually get use out of his damage, because his damage is good, don't get me wrong. But unfortunately, rage doesn't last too long, because it's not berserk. It lasts 2 turns or something, or 3.
Lasts for 2 turns, rage.
2. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 turns. So yeah, Nobumichi kind of 3-star kind of burns out quickly, even if he doesn't get hit. His damage is still okay with crit, and it is reliable. It's 100% and 90%. So
it's a nice attribute too.
I'm sure. Yeah, nothing really. Well, I mean, Valiant resists it, but how often is that relevant?
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I imagine I will at least find some use out of it. I mean, I wouldn't really recommend other people build around him, but you can if you want to. He's usable.
I see. I just have a few lingering thoughts on this unit. For one, that healing to the enemy effect that you described, Harvey, I'm sort of convinced that that's a bugged skill, and it's actually Nobumichi who should get healed. Because that makes more sense to me, just because he doesn't fully heal everything himself just from blessing that he subtracts from himself on enemy turn start. So, to sort of encourage him to get hit more so that he has a chance to heal beyond blessing and go above 700 damage to recover that makes more sense to me as a cohesive gameplay style, especially since 100 healing or HP to the enemy is like nothing at all. It would make more sense as an effect to counterbalance the difference between blessing and the amount of flat damage taken. So if there's any LifeWonders spies listening, go ahead and fix that for me, will ya? But yeah, I think the increased recovery just will sort of help you remain above with that effect healing if it does go off just from getting hit once. Other than that, I think they could work decently well, actually quite well, but for what they are trying to do is the issue. But I think the issue is what they're trying to do isn't super interesting in the end, or at least not really nearly as good as the best strategies in the game, because he has like guaranteed evasion, and it's very easy to just deal with the healing to compensate for that flat damage to himself. So that he'll just have permanent flat evasion, and or permanent evasion on himself rather. And copy all buff can be strong. You could bring like Kenko in the back for some reason if you want, but there's some various things you could do. With that said, it's just having like some defensive strategy for guaranteed protection to both yours, like Nobumichi, as well as the unit behind, and then then you have just board wiping strategies that kill everyone instantly. It's like, why bother with that part? It's really just an issue of, I think what he is aiming to do is pretty good. But even if he was completely perfectly did what he was supposed to do, it still wouldn't be good in the sense of what other strategies are in the game. But yeah, those are just my overall thoughts on this unit's gameplay kit.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's just very little incentive to ever bring him, and even for quests where you want his defense, just because in those types of quests there's bound to be debuffs that just kind of screw him over, whether it's just more flat damage where you can't have uptime on evasion, or if it just immobilizes him so you can't use him to move and defend your team.
Yeah, he doesn't really seem to have a way to deal with any sort of mechanics. It's like all the mechanics are on himself and his presumed partner, but he doesn't have too much in the way of, countering enemy mechanics, except like maybe remove buff, but debuffs, unless he's getting possessed or something, then he'll just be vulnerable to not being able to keep his evasion up and thus losing like the main reason why you want to use him. But yeah, I agree with that sentiment, Harvey. If you have any other thoughts, feel free to speak, but otherwise, you're free to read up the comments.
You can also bring Hermes, I guess. Not to mention that, but yeah.
It was like I saw Hermes in your in your review of these units. By the way, make sure I'll update the description later so that Harvey's reviews are in the description. But he prepares his own reviews for new units, for the most, unless like released by themselves. But yeah, I saw Hermes and I was like, is it just for the healing reversal, really? And did you forget about all the other healing reversals that are just better than Hermes now, or more reliable, like Ellie and Kriznik and stuff like that?
It's for the HP loss reversal, so you can change his enemy turn start HP decreased into a heal instead. So for like 4 turns, you'll have permanent evasion. So that's nice.
Yeah, although that will also only last for 3 turns. But I don't know, if you're bringing Hermes behind him, then it's just getting a very tanky, like, wet noodle that's gonna be attacking the enemy. So
okay, so I did run like this shitty meme team where it was like Enigma and Nobumichi and Hermes, and Nobi would just like copy healing reversal off of Enigma behind him for permanent invasion. They just kind of just like sat there and lived forever. And then it just kept going until like I got hit by like some charge skill and Nobumichi just kind of died. But yeah, that is a meme that you can do.
Yeah, Nobumichi's... I don't know. They need to make more quests where these sort of units would work is the issue. Right now we just have too many quests where there's a bunch of enemies everywhere and, dueling is never relevant. It's better to just team build or some shit like that. A lot of the Berserker units, for example, from the guild there, are theoretically good if you're doing one-on-one battles, but that's like never the case in Hoso. You're obviously going to be team building with synergy, and I feel like Nobumichi's sort of like that. I mean, obviously he doesn't work by himself, but just with like 2 units and with completely ignoring the rest of his team and just working to do his own thing, it's not great.
We spent 25 minutes talking about this meteor unit.
Alright, feel free to read the comments then.
Okay.
Oh, and please speak closer to your mic. Much clearer. With bravado.
Banana Dog from J Bear. Yeah, he does have that banana-looking lightsaber. Hello, guys. Hi, just got here. What did I miss? Nothing important. Hey, Ara.
Yo.
Hot take, worst dog in the game. I wouldn't say he's the worst dog, but he's kind of not that interesting to talk about, I guess.
Could you really say he's better than regular Mori?
Well, we'll see how his story unfolds.
Yeah.
At Maple Daz, new AR Nobumichi 3-star. Checkmark eyebrows. Hate when LifeWonders make some characters a thrust unit. Yeah, there really hasn't been any like decent 4-star thrust units, huh?
See, the problem I have with thrust is like, theoretically it might be good if they design a unit to use their thrust range well, but that's never the case, right? It just ends up being like you want it to be shot because they made them a damage dealer or some shit like that, or they end up like Huma, which is like on miss and on attack success, which seems neat on principle, but it's not really worth it in the end. They really gotta amplify the incentive to use thrust range, because it's either that or they just do like some they're not really thrust units, like fucking Shiva and just using all range for everything. Alright, continue.
Yeah. Big bro doggo. I'm a brocon now. Hi, this banner blasted me. Right, Zalga's synergy is not dependency. Happy Easter, Ara, and nice anti-Masanori wielder.
Happy Easter.
Plus because of his possession resistance?
Yeah, possession and doubt resistance.
I guess. He's a thrust unit because he was made to top. LifeWonders, is it a skill bug or a feature bug? Probably. Generic, you don't work with meta buffers comment. I mean, he technically works with them. It's just that you don't get too much out of him because of his stupid thrust range. And he doesn't have that many like offensive buffs on his own, so he's just kind of stuck with that.
Use Sphinx.
Piss dog heal. Yeah. Time to do Hasamo solo challenges /J.
You say /J, but that's like half. No, that's like 90% of the high difficulty quest. Someone's doing a solo challenge.
He's definitely a unit. Yep, there he is. Mr. Peanut Butter. After all those years, 4-star Yasuyori is still the best to Kenshi kit-wise.
Disagree. Yoshito and Masanori probably have the best kits.
Yeah, ironically, the blow range unit has the best. They've been doing blow units really good, but then again, you know, Masanori's been helped by Oz massively. But for real, like, I feel like Masanori is just the most relevant out of all the Kenshi now, simply just because Oz exists.
I mean, even if you weren't using him in that function, you can possess and doubt people, and you can also just use him as a buffer. And Yoshito also has, you know, all the various debuffs and buffs he can inflict.
Yeah, for
easily enough.
For how much units we got to fulfill that function from the invaders, there's still relatively few double possession and doubters at the same time, and Masanori is still one of the more reliable ones, so definitely been more useful than a lot of the other Kenshi, at least in my experience.
It's so stupid how they can make blow range units good, but not thrust.
That's so true, actually. You know, you can make Miniaki busted, you can make Masanori busted, but who are you gonna pair with Oz? That's thrust range, really.
Awkward middle ground. Fashionista Wakan. I know because I do it.
Oh, I guess. Yes.
Hi, Irby. I made it just in time to say this banner certainly has some of the units we've ever gotten. Yeah, this isn't really a great banner to roll on, especially if you're new, but I guess there's like Kersha to reroll for. Like
the Hastur bait.
Yeah, Hastur bait. I like him, but he's not like really beginner friendly.
Hastur is. We'll get to Hastur when we get there. I was about to interject, but let's just continue.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of his gameplay or style. He's kind of like a defensive wet noodle, grade C-. Yeah. Yasuyori's Christmas ult is a pretty nice unit to use. Disagree. Blow units prob can be OP because of blow range. Summer Oz notwithstanding. Knickknacks, paddywhack, give a dog a bone.
Very insightful commentary.
I don't... Alright, that's it.
Thank you. And for the record, I agree with that assessment. Harvey, Yasuyori's Christmas ult is really not good at all. But
no.
Just accept.
I mean, you know, if you think about it, he's like another CS locking unit, like Christmas Shrine.
It's, I don't know, he's just part of the dead batch that is Mystic Christmas and Sunshine Christmas. They're just long forgotten. So maybe we'll get an Evo one day if they actually remember that, but man, it's like they went all out to make those units that charge quickly. And then that was the entire banner's feature, and yet their charges weren't that amazing. And then like the banner immediately after, or at least around the time, just got a bunch of, you know, much stronger hitting fucking units that don't even need to charge. It's like, what's the point? Anyways, I'm here to say let's get some charge evos one day, and we'll just move on to the next topic now. So, thankfully, Nobumichi finally is killed. We will now be talking about Kersha or Husha, depending on what sort of faithfulness to the pronunciation of Georgian you want. So this will be covered by not Zelgus, Milkosmo. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say that I still use Yasuyori the most, but yeah. Yeah, so Kersha is a pretty okay unit, I think. His main feature is all the way down in his last skill, where after moving he applies crit plus to allies 1 square around on the odd turns, and crit to allies 1 square around on the even turns. Maybe it's some basketball reference, but I don't know. I don't really get it. So yeah, that's basically the main part of his kit, is just offensively buffing after moving, and he has extra horizontal movement to do so. And yeah, that's the rate of the crit plus and crit is 80%, but he has a phase start concentration to self, so it actually gets buffed to 90%. Unfortunately, that's still not 100%, so you have to make up the difference with glints from probably the Kool-Aid AR, or seeding him, or if you're like a hipster, you can use Valen Arc and get prayer onto him. And
he has a lot of
well, the miss is just like okay, because usually you're going to be trying to attack stuff, but yeah. So I'll get into it later.
Gotcha.
So going back to his first skill, he has status removal for anything that prevents him from moving, but unfortunately this list does not include madness or confusion, as people have probably figured out with these farming quests. But he'll be immune to stuff like fear and break and oppression, so just the things that prevent you from moving. And he also applies this really large chunk of 10k flat damage to the enemy 2 squares in front of him. This is like okay if you're moving him to attack enemies. So because his own damage isn't particularly great, since he only has concentration for an offensive buff. And after he moves, he changes to shot range, which is what I mean by attacking the enemies, because typically he's an unranged unit, but you have to move him in order for him to attack. And the shot range only lasts for 1 turn, so you have to constantly keep moving him if you want him to be an attacker. When he attacks, he can apply charm to the enemies at a 60% rate and steal their CP, so that's kind of nice if that happens. And he also has evasion pierce, so this might be okay if you can get like damage onto him, but as again, his own self damage isn't particularly great. And he also applies charm to that same enemy 2 squares away from him in the front. And then his third skill is that if he misses, which he can do if you don't move him and he's in unrange, he can apply glints to himself and apply tenacities to the allies 1 square around. Or alternatively, you miss him even with him being shot range, then this skill will also activate. He's immune to skill lock, and he applies defense up to allies adjacent on phase start. But yeah, the main part of his kit really is just that, in my opinion, is that he can do crit plus and crit. But the part that I don't really... So people have been trying to like compare him to Linan before like he dropped in the banner. I don't particularly like sort of agree or like that assessment, mainly because even though it's crit plus and crit to allies 1 square around, and that sounds good. The fact that it's spread to the entire team rather than being focused on one unit kind of makes it different, because the Nan is all concentrated like an 11.2 multiplier onto one unit, whereas his is just spread out to the entire team. So it actually kind of makes it a little tricky once you start going to like wide quests for turn 1, because there you're not necessarily able, using Kershaw, to just spread it to the whole team depending on your team positioning. The part that I don't like about this crit plus and crit also is that it kind of makes it hard for Kershaw to be used with other people, mainly because a lot of like shot and snipe units depend on crit plus and crit for their damage. So because he has to alternate between crit plus and crit, there's some downtime sometimes when it comes to damage. So for example, like let's say you use like Summer Akiha with Kershaw. Summer Akiha has crit on turn start for like the first turn of each phase, but Kershaw will apply crit plus only on the odd turns. So you can't really use him for you can't really use him optimally for column clearing with that unit. The same goes for like units like Otohime, who has crit plus for her damage, and then on turn 1 she doesn't get buffed. So that's something that I don't particularly like about this after moving crit plus and crit to allies. The second thing that I don't particularly like is the fact that Kershaw doesn't really get a lot of stuff to himself. Like, his concentration is only to self. And in fact, all the defensive buffs I mentioned, if you try to play him in a more like longer, like more casual, like not a farming quest sort of way, is that his defensive buffs, tenacity and defense up, don't apply to himself either. So he's actually rather liable to taking damage and just dying. But you can kind of build around it in a farming sort of way. So I think the ideal scenario for using Kershaw, if you tried to go for farming, would be using like people who somehow don't have crit plus and crit in their kit at all. So maybe somebody like Summer Babe Bunyan or like Summer Katoblapas, maybe like the Valentine Yoritomo, and or like Christmas Bertro. You can also just try like bringing in like one of the more like prototypical like damage buffers to help boost Kershaw's damage himself, like Yoritomo or like, you know, Tingles or Fushi, and that could probably work for like a vertical farming map. For like the current like wide farming map, so not I don't mean in like the event, but like for like, you know, blossoms and stuff, I don't really see Kershaw having much use as of yet. So yeah, that's really my thoughts on his gameplay style in like a farming sense. Actually having tried using him in the Tower of Babel quest though, I can see him being kind of fun. I used him a bit, and his, you know, crit plus and crit is fine if your units don't have him. So I was using him with like Inaba and Christmas Bertro, and they did a lot of damage because crit plus and crit are nothing to sneeze at, and the defense up, the defensiveness also kind of helps. But as I said, his lack of buffs to himself is kind of really hurtful to him in those contexts. For ARs, there's not actually really a lot because he's a non-element, but I guess you can try using that Kotaro Andvari AR and try roll for that 50 CP beam. or if you have like a good like Kengo AR Oath artifact level, you can try roll for crit too. Kersha himself, and he can do some damage. So yeah, that was my thoughts on Kersha. I think he's like an okay unit in general. Like, I think beginners will find him fairly strong, but in like the farming meta wise, like for like vertical or like, you know, wide maps in general, you're probably gonna find him a little lacking for team building because of his odd like buff alternation. In fact, you kind of see him kind of failing to do stuff here in this farming quest. But maybe that's just because the other units are like Thrust and Pazuzu. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. But before I give my thoughts, what do you think? Harvey, Zogus.
I'm like kind of disappointed that we didn't get something like a bit more flashy with this kit, considering that he's, you know, literally taking a selfie in his 5-star art. So you'd expect him to like back up some of that talk, you know? I don't know. It's just his kit's kind of boring, but I guess it's effective for what it does. It's like a 60-40 split between offense and defense, which is alright.
Boring,
I
but
don't think I'll ever
effective.
use him
Perfectly encapsulates the column clearing trope in general.
I don't think I'll ever use him performing when I have units like Crispus Nomad or like offensive buffers like Vanilla Yoritomo. But I guess he's an option if you don't have those more like meta supports.
He's too bloody weak. He can't kill things in the goddamn spring or new semester grind quest on his own. It's so annoying.
That's not his fault,
Yeah,
okay?
Well, he can't kill Barg, like unseated. So I was actually considering just attack seating him because that was like so annoying that he somehow like
Just
you know.
underneath.
You should land Charm forehead.
Barg always seems to be in the back row somehow. But yeah,
This random locations for the grind quest is the worst thing ever.
I think it's at least engaging, but that's just me, I guess. Yeah, I was actually considering attack seating too, but I don't have attack seating since I already used them all, so what can you do? I do think his personal damage is okay, it's just he needs another buffer for himself. And
I don't think
he-
so. I don't think so. Like concentration for just like shot range, that doesn't really cut it.
That's also
For,
his
like,
attribute type,
okay.
right? And also his partial utility with evasion piercing and also having extended movement.
Yeah, but his base attack is below average, so as an attacker he is just a bit lacking. Which, I mean, to be fair, being an attacker is not his main role. He's kind of a general unit, but still, it doesn't mean I can't complain because he's not up to the standard that I expect for a grind quest unit.
Well, you know, if you ignoring his own personal ability to clear his own column, he does remind me more than Nan and actually of a what's his face Hote, since he also bestows crit. Except the difference is he can do it every turn, and that doesn't depend on enemy positioning. So I think that's sort of a nice way to see his utility, rather than focusing on his kind of shite personal column clearing.
Oh right, Hote. The thing about Hote versus him, because I did remember that this is like a thing that people compare him to, right? Is that Hote might work better than him synergy-wise, just because Hote's just like crit, so you can bring just like your crit plus people like Otohime and maybe some other person that I can't think of off the top of my head. The thing though is that Hote's kind of like very map dependent, because you have to like anticipate where the enemies are to steal crit from in the first place. So yeah, there's some like advantages and disadvantages, such that for like a farming perspective, he might just be able to get away with Hote instead of like Kershaw, and that's a little sad.
I mean, they both function similar but slightly different purposes. Like, you know, you're right about the whole crit and crit plus sort of issue with the amount of units you could bring. But, you know, Kershaw also has that feature of perhaps helping a bit with dealing with a slightly larger HP pool than normal boss because of his single target, like, charm and what's called HP depletion. So, it's like similar but different, as are all Calm players.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think his power budget is like all over the place. Like you have his life steal, or not his life steal, his CP steal, his 60% charm, his fucking 10k HP, and like 2 squares away. It's like, when will you ever use him for that?
I think that the charm might help if I replace someone in my Chapter 12 clearing team, because fucking what's his face, Akia keeps on failing his bind, and so they survive and hit me back or some shit like that. But you know, it's looking beyond grind quests. I'm sure there might be some cases on high difficulty quests too, where there's a bunch of enemies and some named enemies was higher than normal HP. And as Milk said, he did take him to the Tower of Babel and found that he did perhaps have more utility in those kind of battles.
Did we talk about his defensive utility at all?
Yeah, we did actually.
I think we did. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind then.
I said it's okay, it's just that he doesn't have any himself, which is kind of like trash if you're like, you know, just going for like
He has charm.
Because you have to, like dodge people. But yeah. I mean, it's like good. You have like tenacity and defense up, and that's like fine. It's just that you have to like worry about Kershaw himself, which is kind of annoying.
Tangaroa moment.
Oh god. Alright, I forgot to mention his CS applies Ardor to himself and allies, like horizontally. He does like extra damage to charm. It's a short range CS as well, so you don't actually have to worry about the none range then. But it doesn't really matter because you're pretty much going to move him like almost all the time for Kershaw.
Yeah, that's true. He's just like heavily reliant on moving, and there's not really a reason why you wouldn't want to move him. There's better tanks that you could use than Kershaw at that point if you really want his tanking features. But I guess Kershaw's main draw is just being able to do both, which is a very high difficulty quest design kind of thing to do. So yeah, he might be better suited for that, despite appearing that superficially he might be best suited for tall map grinding. But yeah, if that's all our thoughts on this unit, you're free to read the comments. Milk, go ahead.
Let's go fast. Extasiasi needs a Skivo. Sure, I guess. I won't mind it. Yes, charge Evos. 5-star Tindal is still a better buffer dog. Yeah, Tindal's is way better. Okay. Hey, Mr. Fuckboy. Come on, son, welcome to the gym. Hastur can't help himself. He takes a bite out of enemies. Hee hee. I think it's more of like his like one night stand sort of thing for the charm and minus 10k HP. Okay, he's a baller, easy S tier. What song is this? I think it is from the FCAR event. From the Fantastic Boyfriends event when facing Necros. Ooh, I didn't even remember lol. Hello everyone. I'm assuming Nobu was covered already. Afternoon Lulu and yup. It's fine, I'll just look back later. Kershaw looked cool. Apparently Kershaw uses an app that's like Grindr, so he's, yeah, X3. Just use Vikengo. You're probably missing someone from New Semester 2 to make grinding smoother. I think like pretty much anybody, if there was anybody in New Semester 2, they would probably be better for grinding than like Pazuzu.
You know, the funny thing is, like, I've already collected most of the items from the shop that I want. So by the time New Semester 2 comes out, there'll be like almost no incentive drop rate-wise for me to pull on that.
Just get coins, because somehow people still don't have coin.
Somehow.
People who used regular Tangaroa for farming quests rejoice. Kershaw is here to save you. regular Tenga.
He has like vigor
guess
and
the
face
last
guard or something.
Tenacity
Yeah.
strengthening.
He has to move for that, doesn't he?
Oh my
Well-
god.
Doesn't he already bestow
The
tenacity
tenacity's
2 on
on-
move?
I have.
I think so, right? He's like a adjacent tenacity buffer because he sucks compared to Aizen.
Does he
the
bestow it on
entire
himself?
joke was no, he didn't do that until he got a skill evo, which
Yeah.
is the joke I was making earlier.
I see.
It was just like so trash when using him in like, what is it, the Go-Go event farming? Okay. He seems a bit half-baked. He's kind of got a dual role thing going on like X's Pulse, Onsen Miyaki with missing and hitting, but I feel like his defensive kit is a bit weak. Tenacity and defense up is pretty good. Like, they're very like high rate. Like, if you look at like Aizen, Snow, and Surtur and stuff, usually the rarer one, like the 4-turn one, is like a 30% rate or something like that. Yeah, I can. So this is actually kind of nice since it's, you know, consistent. But
You say that,
I
but
guess
doesn't
there's also,
fucking
like-
Team Delos get like guaranteeable rates for both
All
protection and
two.
like tenacity?
Yeah, but those are 1 turn. Yeah. So like defense up is a bit of like a rare sort of case. I think the main part though is that he doesn't have it to himself, and that's like really the killer.
Nice.
Whereas 2 different crit buffs might be interesting if they make someone who refreshes buffs like, no, you can't refresh buffs that are like 1 turn. Like, I'd like to see it, but I don't think that's gonna happen. So yeah. Yeah. I don't really see anything coming out of like a buff refreshment. Okay. His kit looks like a one-night stand. Like, we have units that can blend 2 roles together that still offer more than he does.
I mean, to be fair, he also blends 2 roles together. I think.
Yeah, the thing though is that he does both at the same time, potentially, right? And that's not really the same as someone like Onsen Miniaki or Xmas Pollux, because you usually do one or the other. But Kersha can actually do both if you move him and still miss, and that's what I think is like his strong point in, you know, like casually clearing like high difficulty quests.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like moving him beside units or some shit to someone who's like the main damage dealer, he won't get any aggro that way, right? As long as you're intentionally making him miss. So you could supposedly just have him constantly tenacity and defense up the main damage dealer with crit plus and crit.
At that point, Gangly 3-star does the same thing. Defense up, in fact, even better. Sobbing emoji. Oh god, not Gangly 3-star. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Alright, well that is it for Kersha or Husha, depending on how you want to go. So we will now, thank you for that milk coaster, by the way. We will now move on to Pazuzu. That is in fact how you pronounce his name, apparently, just as the name on the tin. So this will be covered by Zagas. Go ahead.
Hello. What's with the background now? Okay, that was weird looking. This is a bright white background for a moment.
It's just the end of the trailer, but yeah.
Yeah, it looked kind of weird. Right, so Pazuzu. If you ever thought earlier I was talking about a very specific lore synergy, well, Pazuzu kind of embodies that. He is very debuff centric, so I'll go over the stuff that isn't related to debuffs first. Or, yeah. So he has. Let's talk about his immunities first, actually. So he has immunities to any status that inflicts damage over time. So this seems a bit innocuous at first, but it's actually really awful. I'll get into why later, although I guess the countdown can be nice since it's the only one that's actually dangerous to have. But anyway, yeah, that'll be awful. The immunity to skill lock, though, is actually useful, because obviously you don't want to get skill locked, and it's rarer than the damage over time debuffs. So it gives anchor to self on phase start for some reason, sure, whatever. Bind on attack, and a 1.5 times multiplier to binded enemies. As always, bind is always useful. 60% rate is kind of standard stuff, so it's, you know, not particularly impressive, but it's fine. Most bind units hover from 50 to 70%. Only 2 units exceed that, which is Vanilla Kijimuna and Yoshito 4. So Pazuzu's bind rate lines up pretty much as expected. I think it's kind of funny that bind is still around this rate when we get stuff like charm constantly increasing. I mean, I guess bind is kind of more debilitating, but whatever. The attack boost from the binders are completely worthless. If you look at Pazuzu's attack stat, it's literally one of the worst attack stats in the game. He hovers around the same region of attack stats that many non-buffers have, like Leonan and Furifumi. In fact, he's the weakest magic unit in the entire game, including mobs. So yeah, Pazuzu's attack will never be worth it. You would need to fully blossom and level seed him for it to be even in okay range. You can see up there 4,200, which is still kind of mediocre. Anyway, so after attacking, apply crit resistance to hit enemies. So this prevents enemies from gaining crit, and it counts as a buff for buff reversal. Crit is kind of dangerous, and we kind of lack ways to prevent it. Before, the only way we really could stop crit before was to, and also any other one-turn duration buffs, is a nullified debuff, and nullified debuff itself is pretty rare.
I mean, nullified buff?
So, yeah, nullified buff rather. Still, it's ridiculously niche, because it's not like everyone uses crit anyway, and you can just stop them through other methods like skill lock or you know, stopping whatever their trigger is, if there's like on move or whatever. I don't know, it could maybe have some use in some far off CQ in the future where they're actually hard again and they actually use crit. The buff reversal part though has some minor synergy with Hastur, but again, talk about that later. So yeah, every 3 turns he provides 30 CP to self and allies adjacent. This is way too slow to realistically be useful besides stall teams. It's an average of 10 CP per turn, and you can exceed that in many other ways. Daikaku can do way more just by missing, and Arachne with her Evo can do more than double that amount of CP by hitting a single unit. Even more for every enemy she hits, and she snipes, so it's easy. Arousal will do the same thing, which is actually slightly more because of randomly high CP gain. Also, just units like Inaba or J Kagutsuchi who gain CP on buffs, but I'll compare more on that later. But yeah, for a skill that's tied to a 3-turn clock, it's kind of bizarrely weak. As for actual synergies on a clock, in my opinion, it's too little effect to actually bother setting up. I couldn't really be bothered to think of units who were on like a 3-turn clock or an odd number clock who would actually benefit from
Christine with a recent Evo.
Yes, okay, I guess. But, you know, I wouldn't put Pazuzu and Christine together anyway, unless you want to do no damage.
There's also what's his face? Tsukiyomi's variant also gives a bunch of CP every 3 turns or some shit like that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, but that's on move phase end, so it doesn't. Really
it doesn't.
help.
It doesn't work.
It only helped on.
The turn.
It only helped in that Sphinx quest because you started with 100 CP, he drained on move, and then he refilled it back. So that was like some extremely
tight timing.
You know, it was just like some extremely like weird thing. But yeah, I'll comment something about it later.
All right.
But yeah, it's 30 CP for every 3 turns is kind of weak. There are some synergies there that I didn't think about, but otherwise it's kind of a bit too slow to really play around easily. So he also has when leaving, double lock the entire enemy board at 100% rate. It's kind of surprising that they use double lock for this. Double lock remains one of the most elusive debuffs for us to be able to use. Besides Pazuzu, only 2 people actually inflict this without CSing. which is Otohime and all the Tojis. And even if you count CSs, you can only add Tanguro, Samashiva, and Kirito, and Otohime again. So, yeah, still very rare, so surprising that we got it. But anyway, skill locking the entire board at a 100% rate is obviously really strong. Charge skill blocking is a bit more niche, but it might be useful too for enemies who, say, spawn with a large amount of CP or something. The when leaving trigger can make it a bit harder to take advantage of when you want. But there might come a quest where you actually want the enemies to have their first turns anyway, to maybe lose a immunity debuff, or a buff, like that one phase in the Hell on Sensiki with the Yoyogi guys. So, you know, you can get more use out of the double lock that way, but anyway, that would only be assuming they're not even immune to double lock. But if they're vulnerable, it can be good. But yeah, otherwise, the double lock through the entire board is obviously useful if you can reliably get Pazuzu killed. Anyway, on to the debuff part of his kit. So his most unique feature is that every phase start he applies a skill to the entire allied board that grants, when debuffed, remove debuff at a 80% rate. So this lasts 4 turns and is designed to make the unit just functionally immune to debuffs, as long as all the procs pass. Unfortunately, it's a flat 80% rate, and you can never change that, so it'll definitely fail when you don't want it to. The phase start trigger also means it can also end up falling off on subsequent phases, depending on how fast you clear a phase. Like, if you clear a phase with 2 turns of the buff left, it'll just fall off the next turn after, end of the next phase after 1 turn, and then you won't get the refresh, so you might need to play around that a bit. Anyway, the skill makes Pazuzu very good for countering debuffs, because he just does it by existing for a phase start. In terms of actual team synergy, though, it's a bit slim pickings, because there are very few units who actually debuff your own units. For actual synergy, there's Hecate. She applies a bunch of long-lasting debuffs while giving that person a buff that grants crit/crit ++ when debuffed. So by just removing those automatically, it means that unit can regain a debuff and trigger the crit when debuffed again. There's Tindalos, I guess. He applies a weakness to himself when he's about to CS, so this could remove it. Although, in my opinion, he shouldn't really be getting hit anyway, since he'll be all-range that turn, and there are ways to mitigate it. Other ways to mitigate it anyway. There's Nightglow's Cthulhu, who conflagrates enemies near him, or allies near him, or both really. It's not really that big a disadvantage though. Heracles applies a bunch of debuffs to himself if he moves, so if you want to move him for some reason, then Pazuzu can help mitigate debuffs from that, although he doesn't really have a reason to move anyway. There's also some units who actually rely on debuffs, which is some nice anti-synergy, so don't pair Pazuzu with them. Wolf relies on his curse and any other debuffs to become really tanky and deal damage. Shenong wants himself and allies to be poisoned to benefit from poison reversal. Tanguro Infinity negates the effects of and gains debuffs for every debuff he has. So Pazuzu will ruin any of these guys' game plan just by existing, so yeah, do not use them together. The actual idea of the skill is to pair Pazuzu with Hastur for lore reasons, or partially for lore reasons. We have yet to talk about him, so I'll just say that Hastur throws debuffs onto enemies and allies alike, so the idea is you use Pazuzu to counter that, and only the enemies will be left debuffed. But really, the more common use is that you'll bring Pazuzu to a map that has really annoying debuffs, or frequent debuffs, or both, and he'll just negate them by existing. So yeah, on to his other stuff. After debuff, he grants himself protection and allies adjacent protection. It's fine, but the rate kind of sucks at 70%. After debuff means it can be bad if you're relying on debuffs from enemies, since he'll probably already have taken damage before defending himself. Say, like, if they have a status effect after attacking, then he'll already have taken the damage. You do only need to proc it once per turn, so if there's a source of renewable team debuffs, which is to say Hastur, then it should be easy enough. Now, after debuff, grant 4 CP to self and allies adjacent at a 90% rate. So this is like a bizarro, terrible version of the recent grants CP to self and allies adjacent when buffed thing we've been having for a while now. For some reason, this grants like half the CP that the lowest of those guys grant, which is Inaba. He grants 8 CP to allies all around. And then some grant higher amounts than that, like Jormungandr grants 10, J-Kagu grants 12. So this skill is terrible for a few reasons. The first reason is that Hastur is immune to, or the Pazuzu, rather, is immune to a lot of debuffs. So I mentioned earlier that the immunity to dots is bad. The reason for this is that he won't trigger the skill for anything he's immune to, and I did test this a few times. So he's immune to dots, so burn, poison, fatal poison, freeze, stigma, countdown. He will not trigger his CP bestowal for any of those debuffs because he never gets it in the first place. This is terrible, actually, because his main partner in crime, Hastur, inflicts 3 of those. So the possible debuffs you can get from Hastur goes from 5 to 2. So having so many debuffs be unavailable to use on him just makes the possible use cases for this skill that much smaller, which is terrible. Second, it's very hard to actually get debuffs onto your team when you want them. Of the units I listed in the previous bit, only Hastur can do it on repeat without much effort. I mean, Cthulhu can do Conflagration, but I mean, Pazuzu's going to die by being near Nightglow's Cthulhu anyway. Hecate straight up cannot give any debuffs to Pazuzu because all of hers are dots, and Shannon can't do it either because his is poison. And finally, the amount of CP granted is unbelievably low at 4 per debuff. Hastur grants 5 debuffs, which amounts to 20 CP per turn, which quite frankly is low for the amount of effort you're putting in by bringing such a specific partner. Or it would be 5, but as I mentioned, Pazuzu is immune to 3 of those debuffs, so in reality, Pazuzu is going to be granting you 8 CP per turn. Wow. The base amount being so low means we're unlikely to ever really get a unit who can take advantage of this besides Hastur, since I kind of doubt we're going to get a constant debuffer in the same vein as Hastur anytime soon. If the CP granted were like just as high or even higher than the when buffed style units, I think it would make more sense and, you know, actually be reasonable. Honestly, it should be way higher considering it's so much harder to get debuffs. Like, it's really easy to buff stack. You have, like, Inaba and co just vomit out tons of CP, and they can do so self-sufficiently, or some of them do it self-sufficiently, like Jormungandr, because he has a bunch of self-buffs. And then there's Pazuzu, who can't do it by himself at all, because he has no debuffs to himself. So he needs a partner to help him out, and only Hastur is viable, except that synergy is kneecapped by Pazuzu's immunities, partially for the sake of lore. So yeah, it's a ridiculously narrow condition for a really minimal game. So yeah, CP skill's terrible. His CS grants weapon change none to enemies, which essentially just disables them for 1 turn. It'll last 2 turns, but it'll tick down in such a way that I think you only get it for 1 turn. Also, he can use it as a mass debuff cleanse, since it'll remove debuffs for each enemy he hits with his CS, but honestly, he should already be doing that, if you ask me. And a pitiful heal and CP drain. Okay. Yeah. So, in conclusion, Pazuzu's main function is to counter and benefit from debuffs counter and benefit debuffs for the entire party. If it's a map that just throws a ton of debuffs at you, then I could see him being useful, because he just effortlessly counters it just by existing. As long as the 80% proc rate doesn't fail, because it will fail, I guarantee that. If it isn't really a debuff-centric map, then he's basically useless, besides as a bind bot. Debuffs as a team concept are still really in its infancy. Team debuffers, who we do have, want the debuffs to stay most of the time and not disappear, so Pazuzu is a niche within a niche, honestly. He feels a bit like they went too far with the lore integrations, because if I didn't make it obvious enough, he's clearly designed to be played with Hastur because he's Hastur's tamer, except that gets hamstrung because he has a bunch of immunities because of his lore. So Also, Hastur's limited, so I don't even know how to feel about trying to pair him with a limited unit. But I'll let more. I'll let the person speaking about Hastur talk more on that. Anyway, besides his debuff usage, I'd say his only other real use is as a double lock suicide bomb. Incidentally, his 3-star kit is identical, except he lacks the remove debuff when debuffed skill, so he's really only useful as a bind bot or a double lock bomb. So if you do want to just have him suicide into the enemy and double lock them, you can use his 3-star for the budget version, and it will be better. I did not bother to think of ARs because no, maybe you have some. That's Pazuzu.
All right. Thank you, Zelgus. Any thoughts to add on this, Milk, Harvey?
I actually do, even though I didn't pull any version of him somehow. I don't think it was said, but yeah, there's like another group of people who depend on debuffs. I think that wasn't mentioned. I was basically wondering what would happen if you tried to move Summer Shiva with Pazuzu on your team at the same time, because you want to like cancel his CS and stuff. It turns out that Shiva will CS anyways, so yeah, do not bring Pazuzu with Summer Shiva, or else you'll get a blow range.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that would be terrible. I guess there's also the Tricksters, which is also bad because they want their debuffs to give to the enemies.
Yeah. The other group, the group being that I was kind of alluding to, is like, the CS lock sort of people. Like,
Durong.
Did you say Christmas Durong? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't, but yeah, they exist.
Yeah, so you don't want Pazuzu on with them as well, I think, if you want to save up the CS. I think Xmas Yasuyori could be fine though, because
it's because he has a reverse trigger, and if you move him, then what he normally does is he locks himself, but he'll just get a charge anyways, I guess.
Yeah, the thing is that Xmas Yasuyori also has this after debuff CP, so
yeah, he actually would benefit from that quite a bit. In the very least. Well, I have more thoughts on it, but you can finish your thoughts.
But yeah, don't bring Summer Shiva. It was kind of interesting because, Summer Shiva, the darkness doesn't even show up because it just gets removed instantly, and he still CSs. So that was kind of like why it was.
Yeah, I remember there was a time when there was some weird thing where, they got the debuff, but then it disappeared.
I think that's the status removal. That was like a status resistance thing, I think. It was like the 50% thing.
Oh, maybe. Well, I don't know, but this case is not a case of resistance, it's a case of removal, so it should show up, but maybe it was just too fast.
But yeah, it was just like, I moved him and you don't see any darkness. So I was like, okay, yeah.
This is good, it's deleted instantly.
But yeah, that was kind of what I was alluding to with the CS being weird. Because it's I don't know, Hosamo's DS checking is just really kind of weird because of, the previous issues we'd had with whether it was yellow or not. And then that's what sort of leads to these weird situations with that Sphinx puzzle where you start with 100 CP, but then you drain, but then you get it back. And it's just okay, sure. So, yeah. This is also kind of the same category. You get darkness, but then you just remove it instantly, so you still CS. So it's okay, whatever.
Yeah, Pazuzu's gonna be kind of funny when it comes to the mechanics related to debuffs, since he just sort of breaks a lot of them. But yeah, did you have any thoughts, Harvey?
I really hate how his debuff removal status is irremovable. So if you end the phase on the wrong turn, you'll just have one turn of it being active for the next phase, and then your team's gonna get raw dogged by debuffs after that. And it's really apparent when you're running double Hastur during the farm quest, because you'll end the phase on like turn 3, and then like if you can't finish the next phase in like one turn, like your character's gonna have like 5 debuffs instantly. So that's really annoying.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just make it 999 turns. Like, they did for Ellie, didn't they? For, like, healing enhancement or something like that. I forgot what, but there's a number of these unique status that are just set at 909. And especially for face turbulence, that should be the case of how it works, but in this case, it's just randomly 4 turns, so it can't be refreshed if you entered late. Which is likely to happen if you're using Pazuzu for his intended purpose of not just blowing everything up, but instead, you know, being tankier and mitigating debuffs and stuff like that.
Just stall for 4 turns.
Of course. I mean, that might actually be reasonable if depending on how slow you're going. Yeah, my thoughts on this unit are, you know, I'd still say you could bring ally debuffers. I know he personally can't really take a bunch of debuffs, but he gives that status to all his other allies as well. So you may want to consider bringing it for, you know, pair him up with Hecate or Hastur just so that other units who can exploit those multiple debuffs, which then get immediately removed, might be able to enjoy. Such as there's Ark's Valentine Fantasy variant. She gets, or they get debuffed with what's called Conflagration or Burn or something like that every second turn, but it's really every turn. And then they could double their CP generation as a result of that. There's also Gulden Bursty as a very interesting example, since he already has massive CP generation, but you know, that just like adds on top of that even more to just be doubly assured that the debuffs will be removed. I believe Seth's regular cards actually has an Evo that post debuff he gives a bunch of healing and defensive statuses to allies adjacent. Takumi Nakata, I think, gives like a buff or something when he's debuffed, and you can just immediately remove it with Pazuzu's help as... Oh yeah, I'm surprised... This was an example that I didn't originally think of, but none of you even mentioned any end of. For example, pairing something multiple debuffers and then removing them immediately with a unit like Halloween Azislas. Well, I guess you guys would be mentioning that with Hastur eventually, but still, it's a very unique case of, you know, him removing his own debuffs after. There's a few other examples. Kalki, Break, Hanwan's Desert Journey variant, and of course there's Yasuhori as well. The issue with him is just that it sucks when he fails his debuff removal, so I feel like he actually would work, even though this is already his function, with another debuff remover, one that's more guaranteed to just remove anything that's left hanging, such as with Aizen's Jeffrey variant or with Tomte. Those are pretty much all my thoughts on this unit that haven't already been covered.
Azathoth already removes debuffs though.
He removes... Oh yeah, he does! Oh my god, I forgot about that.
No one
It's basically the same skill.
Yeah, so that's why I was like confused, like, why would you bring Pazuzu when he already does it himself?
I don't have him! I want him, but I don't have him. Oh well.
Well, I don't have him either, but I know his kit, so...
Yeah.
Wow. Whatever, I can make mistakes sometimes. Alright, fine. I forgot. I'm dumb. I think that's all our thoughts on Pazuzu, so you can read out the comments, Zalgus, and then we can move on.
I don't know, maybe there's some AR he can equip that lets him remove debuffs.
You could also equip, speaking of ARs, the Bale Astros one, but yeah. If for whatever reason you want to.
What does that one do?
It gives the debuff poison or some shit like that.
But he can't be poisoned.
To allies as well, right? So if it's
Why
one of
would
those
you want
synergy
poison
cases with Arc and all that, I don't know.
Oh, right. Comments then. Where were we? Hi. Mr. Pazuzu. Pazuzu's tailor-made for Hastur, his muscles are just for show. Yes, this is correct. Literally the only thing he has going for him is the debuff immunity, but I guess that's good enough. Definitely a must-have for tank teams. Upside down smile. I mean, don't know about must-have.
He's a pretty good choice for tank
yeah.
teams, but I think the upside down voice is just because tank teams.
I mean, you could also just use him for offensive teams. where, say, maybe the enemies inflict a bunch of debuffs by getting hit, like stupid ghosts. That could be useful to have Pazuzu to just out remove them. Yoyogi. I was referring to the Hell Onsen CQ that has one of the phases has a bunch of Yoyogis, and on phase 1 or turn 1 they're all immune, so you have to let them take a turn first. Head of Festivities blow units are quaking at that CP gen. Yes, Pazuzu's CP gen is very impressive. There's a difference between status resistance and removal. Yes, that's right. Status resistance means the status never existed to begin with, and status removal means they will have it for a moment and remove it. As can be seen with Pazuzu, if you bring him with Hastur, you will notice that he gains no CP for the first turn or two, because Pazuzu is immune to those debuffs. Prisma said it. Arrow wants Pazuzu.
I didn't say that, but I already do have him, so it's like in both runs, not really a relevant question.
I feel like the Beast Tamer didn't have a better alternative to deal with King in yellow and pick Pazuzu, despite the fact that he only 60%. Oh, right, he only negates 3 out of 5 of his debuffs, and that's good enough. I mean, that's just a law being bizarre. Or honestly, if he was immune to all of Pazuzu's debuff or Hastur's debuffs, that would be really stupid, because that would basically remove the entire point of the after debuff CP skill.
I mean, that's not even, if you remove it completely, it's not losing much. So
that is true. You're losing 8 CP per turn. And that's assuming that he successfully removes it every time. That kit reminds me of their current relationship. Pazuzu's kit feels tailored to Hastur, but Hastur doesn't particularly care for Pazuzu, I guess. Maybe he should work on taking better advantage of Hastur then, because he certainly ain't doing it very much. Lore. Oh, is that Pazuzu from the classic hit movie The Exorcist? Makes my head spin and makes me throw up. His art is good. I do like how he looks, at least. The fun fact about Pazuzu is that his hair is meant to be a scorpion tail and his trouser snake is meant to be a bit more literal than you think. Yes, I saw that in his bio.
Alright, I need to read bio there. Apparently there's lots of fun things in the bios, including with fucking Porsche and maybe even Hastur.
The lore. I mean, Nobumichi also has... His is less amusing, but is more lore important. But yes, I do like how Pazuzu looks. He's very stylish.
I mean, he's kind of in my mind, paired with Kersha in terms of if Kersha gives the ultimate fuckboy, or exudes the ultimate fuckboy air, Pazuzu gives the ultimate rich boy air.
That's correct, actually. You might not like him for that reason, but we can talk about that later.
Alright, we can move on to the next topic. Thank you for covering the chat, August. So, lastly, the topic we'll be talking about is Hastur. Because he's new to join us, Harvey will be taking the second topic and the last topic. So, go ahead.
Alright, so Hastur, aka my favorite unit on this banner, multiple reasons. His 3-star is just a really watered down version of his 5-star. He'll have poison applied to his allies and enemies nearby him after move phase end, which is okay if you have someone who wants to get debuffed a lot, like Halloween Azathoth. And the turn after that, he'll start applying Stigma to allies and enemies and a Diamond Radius, which is fine. For enemies, it's a slash and thrust range, so that's it's not too game breaking. He applies buff reversal on 20% rate, which is pretty garbage. And when he's binded, he'll basically do no damage. It's minus 999,999, yeah, whatever. So just don't it doesn't really matter for him. When he's bind, he's basically useless anyways, because you usually won't bring him for too much damage unless you build a team around his damage, which I'll get into later. Hiramu's Possession, which is nice, and on turn 3 and afterwards, he'll have Weapon Change All, which doesn't unfortunately matter for his 3-star because his attack stat is so low and he doesn't have a lot of access to big multipliers. But he'll have defense up, phase start, and dazzle after he's being hit, so he'll be fairly tanky in those skirmishing type quests. Yeah. And his CS is all range, and good. He gets combo too and attack up, which is pretty nice. But other than that, there's not a whole lot to go over his 3-star. His 5-star is where it gets interesting, because he gets a whole lot more debuffs to spread around. So immediately he'll get access to Poison and Fatal Poison. Fatal Poison activating after he hits something, and that spreads in a slightly wider range than his regular Poison, that being a 2 square diamond radius. And it's like a whatever effect, because I don't think anyone really cares about Poison other than like Astaroth or like I said earlier, Halloween Azathoth just like refreshes, or he can like, take advantage of the constant debuffs. On the second turn and onwards, he'll have access to Stigma and Madness. Madness being in a 5x5 range, which is kind of massive. You'll need to like look out for this because Madness can like actually fuck up your movement. The Stigma range doesn't change, but it's still nice to have. I think if you use units who have vertical movement, you won't really care about the Madness on them, but I don't know how often you'll use those types of characters. On turn 3, he'll also have access to Board-wide Weakness, which is kind of self-explanatory. I don't need to go into this. His buff reversal rate is higher too, at 40%, which is nice. And he'll also, on the same turn as his weakness proc, he'll get Weapon Change All, which is really nice, because this pairs up into his next status that he bestows onto enemies, and that being this before being hit, remove buffed from self and allies adjacent. So he'll be able to roll for this like to the entire board alongside his team. He's also really good in these like skirmish type quests because of his after being hit effects, that those being Dazzle and Skill Lock at 70 and 80%. And he'll be fairly tanky as well thanks to his defense up from phase start. So after he's hit, he'll also... So Hastur is kind of a new unit for the debuffing archetype, and I really like that archetype, if you can tell already. So you'll want to pair him with units who gain a lot of leverage from debuffs, like Mugen Tangaroa or Halloween Azathoth, or even units who have a lot of multipliers against debuffs, like Kirito or Halloween Olives, are going to be good pairs with him. His Weapon Change All for his 5-star is actually kind of a big deal, because it also enables him to be like a pseudo board wiper if you build a team around that. And he doesn't have any of his own offensive buffs, so you're free to like use Leonin or Mephistopheles or Yoritomo or any other like those meta supports. Alright, and I forgot to talk about CS. He gets attack all, or attack up and combo from it, and also applies healing reversal for some reason. I don't really understand that part, but it's there. So yeah, it's a nice board wipe, and combo does help for fishing for that remove buff status thing. I think those are all my thoughts about him.
Well, it also fishes for buff reversal, but any thoughts on recommendations? ARs, PRs with units, types of quests?
Alright, he can also use him with Perun, since he'll have extra damage in his nourishment, and the enemies will be dealing more damage to each other thanks to that nourishment and also weakness that he applies board bite. I don't think he has a bunch of ARs that are good with them, but besides like Kuliber Glint or like the Tetsuwa Khan for a bigger CS. I guess you can take the Tez and Keiichi AR just for more debuff application.
Tez Ketchi? What debuff does that inflict?
It's confusion after attack.
I forgot that completely. I see. That would work while Ashley was Manus. Good point.
Yeah. Alright, and I guess you can also take the Avarga and Arsalan AR if you're building around him being a board viper.
Yeah, you totally could do that. If that's all your thoughts on this, what do you two think? Milk, Salgus.
Hastur bait.
I honestly, I was baited by Hastur, yeah.
I fell for it. I don't regret it at all.
Yeah. Hastur is limited for anyone who does not yet know from us mentioning it.
I actually forgot that was the name of the stream, but yeah, he is indeed bait.
Yeah, Hastur baiter. Okay. I don't think it was said, so I think his best partner is Mugen Tangaroa, except that you have Hastur at skill level 1. Because then Mugen Tangaroa is invincible. Because LifeWonders
Right.
cannot fucking code Mugen Tangaroa.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
and it's 100% anyways.
Yeah, all of his debuffs are 100% except for the being after hit ones.
That's so bad, but it works.
But yeah, this is why like debuff stuff was kind of like in a shaky situation because of fucking Mugen Tangaroa not being able to be coded properly. So like even if you have like a 3-star Hastur, 5-star would be better because then it's just weakness and you can just place Hastur wherever. But like even 3-star Hastur with like a skill level 1, since Mugen Tangaroa, the way his debuff like negation is implemented is that any defensive debuff he gains has their multiplier subtracted by like whatever makes it to 0.9x. So like for like Stigma, which I think is at 2.3x, it gets subtracted by 1.4x. Unfortunately though, this was assuming that the debuff was at skill level 100. So if you have a skill level like 1 status debuff, like Stigma in this case, it just gets subtracted to 0. So Mugen Tangaroa gets 0 damage. This is for like the chat, if the chat doesn't know about what I'm complaining about. But basically, if you guys like have some skill level 1 Hastur, you can try it for yourself with like a Mugen Tangaroa's support and see that once he gets like a level 1 weakness or Stigma, he'll get 0 damage. And yeah, it's pretty bad because the debuff uptime is also 100% because it's move phase end. So yeah, that's the cheese interaction that
Have you tried it?
probably will...
patched.
I don't know, they can't really patch this easily without like recoding the game
Fixing
entirely.
Tangaroa, yeah. So that it's not that stupid.
Yeah.
Thing he currently has.
The next thing is gonna last like 16 hours now because of milk.
Yeah, because like you can't. They have to like actually they can't just fix this as like a kit sort of thing. They either have to like revamp Tangaroa entirely, which is like not gonna go well with people who like care about their game's integrity, Not that it stopped LifeWonders before, but yeah, the only way they can really get around it while retaining Mugen Tangero's functionality, or at least his intended functionality, is by like changing how the game works, like, or like how status effects work. So yeah, we'll probably just keep seeing this going forward.
That's actually a
Awesome.
surprisingly awesome find.
Yeah. So yeah, Jello brought it up in the Discord, so that's why I know about it.
Thank you,
I
Jello.
did test it, and it does work. Yeah. So yeah.
I'm gonna
That's,
need all that in writing later, because I get the principle, but the specifics seemed to be quite a lot. But yeah.
I
So
look forward to the clear of this later in the year.
I mean, like, he's not technically invincible since he can still die to stuff like flat damage, but like any like, you know, like typical like damage, like he's just gonna get 0. So yeah.
he can't die to flat
The
damage,
unfortunate
just
thing,
down to
though-
0.
Wait, if he takes like constantly 0 damage and just can't die, right?
I think
Even
it
if it
might.
takes flat
I think
damage?
spirit type flat damage might not work.
Okay.
Right?
Oh no,
'Cause
spirit.
spirit type flat damage is actually like additive at the very end. So
The spirit meta
You
spirit
know, like-
boys.
yeah, so he could technically die if it's like, you know, that sort of like spirit type flat damage. And that's what I'm talking
Right.
about.
Speaking of
Mm,
spirit, if Hastur
yeah.
gets spirit and he's binded, does he still do 800 damage? Or
I think they're conflicting, but we'll see. I would assume that they're just bundled up together. Like, you don't like, you know, subtract and then add, you just combine them and do one check at the same time.
Yeah, I
yeah.
would presume that too. Something added, just like you know, multipliers are considered all together first.
But yeah, I don't really know where you'd go to get binded for Hastur to check without like, you know, killing the entire enemy first. Maybe like some mobsters and like the Tower of Babel Tycoon.
there was the that one Valentine quest with the chocolate slimes, I think. And there were a lot
Is
of
it-
like mobs that binded you.
Is it after being hit or just like they have to attack you, right?
Yeah.
And you might just kill them first. Yeah. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about Hastur, is that there's that cheese with Mugen Tangeroa and skill level 1 status effects, which is why I don't really look forward to the debuff meta particularly expanding.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
if it'll
I don't
encourage LifeWonders to
care.
actually go back to their older code and like rework it, then I'm down for it too. But even if that was just one thing he said, it was well worth saying. So thanks, Smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Salgus?
I was considering complaining more about the Pazuzu Hastur thing, but I think it's not really. It's already been sufficiently explained how they work together. But yeah, I do think it'll be funny that if we ever fight Hastur in like any sense, if his kit is anywhere close to vanilla, which considering the caliber of the recent quests we've been getting, I wouldn't be surprised if we fought a vanilla Hastur. It'd be funny if that happened, because then Pazuzu actually would just straight up counter him, because if he binds him then he's useless. So that would be amusing if we ever fight him. But they made it so very blatant that Pazuzu counters him, which, I mean, I guess is fine. But I don't know, do we really encounter bind that often these days? I mean, we don't encounter anything that often these days.
I mean,
Whenever the policemen show up, sometimes, yeah.
why did Arab just mute himself?
I agree.
Okay.
Ara, you muted yourself. Where'd you go?
No, that was intentional. Sorry, what was I saying?
Something about
talking
the
about when the
policeman binding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
if you
actually
were the
meant
showdown
that the police
quest,
were
it's like
outside
the
his door.
police- Not that police. I mean the police characters like Tajikaro or Hogan. Sometimes they show up before and bundle together, like in the Showdown quest. Although that was like 2 years ago, so.
Oh wow, 2 years.
It happens, you know. It's like a character affiliation-based thing when these effects show up, but obviously it doesn't happen enough. Well, if that's all your thoughts, what I can add to that is essentially, you know, the same sort of synergy from before. You may want to couple him with some other debuff removers, as well as those that benefit from being debuffed. So same units, Arc, Don't Roasty, stuff like that. And you may also, as for ARs, there's actually a whole catalog of ARs that can help remove debuffs that you wouldn't necessarily equip on him, but someone else on your team that Hastur shares. So there's a Moritaka Orgasone, which is like on attack removing one, I believe. Wakantanka Taurus Mask is removes debuffs left and right. Fenrir Jumbavan, I forget the trigger condition for that, but I'm sure it has him. Tamte Shinya is like turn 4 onwards and removes 1 debuff or something. There's quite a few actually, so it'd be an annoying list, and I don't think all of you would remember it off the top of your head just from that. So you can just find that on Wiki. And since he actually gives, like, I think he's, well, you know, besides a unit like Shannon on charge, he's like a unit that gives the most debuffs, unique debuffs in the game. That's 6 on total, or 7 if you want to include healing reversal. And it's something you could consider bringing with Halloween Alice or Beach House Bolos or Kirito, since they have a all debuff advantage. So yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts on this unit. Very cool unit, and I think I like Milk's point most. I'm interested in seeing clears of that for sure. Oh, and
did you say Seth?
Seth has this thing where he's debuffed and he heals units adjacent post devo, and also some defensive buffs.
Oh, post Evo.
Yeah,
I completely forgot about this Evo. I thought you were talking about
no.
Valentine's Colosseums.
No, definitely not. No,
dazzles himself.
No, absolutely not. I just like to add to Harvey. I didn't really know when to show your slides while you're talking, since it didn't seem to be structured by the turn of debuffs. So I just decided to show it during this discussion section. But yeah,
that's fine.
All right. Next time, cue me in if you got slides in the future. But yeah. That aside, we are done talking about Hastur. So we'll just move on to our conclusion section.
Overall thought, comments.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Please read out the comments. Harvey.
Where did we leave off?
The Nobumichi lore sparkle.
Alright. Pazuzu has oil field. Petripzu is his new name. Pazuzu is rich. I love and very much hate this unit. Wow. Era struggling with the slides. I saw that. Dasuwa. At Harvey Kai's. At Arathun. Should I again try for Hastur or stay for a new semester too? There will be like a slight overlap between New Sim 1 and New Sim 2, so if you can wait until like after maintenance, you can probably see for yourself if you want to roll. I wonder how this single unit would pair with Volk. True craziness will drastically limit his movement, but he doesn't exactly have any skills that require movement. So Volk is weird because he doesn't get anything extra from the more debuffs other than like more precision rolls, and that doesn't really increase in range either. So I think like just like something like Summer Shenong would suffice, and you'll also have like a strong baseline with that unit as well.
I mean, he gains additional shields for each debuff.
What? Does he?
Does he?
I thought that was only Tango Mugen.
Save
Wolf.
Say Wolf, right?
Yeah.
Yes, as someone who owns him and uses him, for every debuff Wolf has, or if he has a debuff, then he will take 0.1 times damage, and then remove a debuff when he's hit. So the idea is his curse is supposed to be his shield, but his curse is also the one that actually strengthens him. But it also means any additional debuffs on him will functionally be another shield for him,
They
another
stack?
0.1 time multiplier.
I know
No, they don't stack. They don't stack. What I mean is, it will remove a debuff, but he will still be holding a different debuff. Therefore, he will still take 0.1 times damage. So they have to eat through more debuffs to actually hurt him.
Yeah, I can.
So yeah, Hastur would be good for that because he would just give him like 5 shields.
So like more hits essentially with that full multiplier.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know how practical that's going to be, considering he's already rolling for like the frontline possession, so there's going to be less people attacking him. But I can see that being like pretty good against like a huge wave of enemies.
Yeah, I have had that before where like I've used the 3-star who has the same thing, and he can get quite easily overwhelmed because just the curse alone, it's only 1 shield, and then he's going to get blown the fuck out because he is infernal. There is, however, a problem where he has, after debuff, decreased HP by 400, so if he gets hit too many times and just removes all the debuffs, and then Hastur will be doing 2,000 damage to him each time. So, in addition to the damage he'll be taking from Madness and Stigma, so and all the other dots, honestly. So, yeah, it's a double-edged thing.
That is interesting. Thank you for that. Waiting to the last day. They usually don't overlap, but I think they have sometimes. Tomoyo. I didn't care for his design at first, but it's warming up to me after reading his research file.
Everyone really likes the research files in this batches, huh? I really should read them.
Yeah. Everyone's actually like reading them. It's kind of weird. I'm not used to people like actually reading their
people reading, not the user.
Hastur, woo! I like characters that rely on debuffs in their kit, so it's awesome. I have him to reliably set that up. Also, his design is whatever that emoji is. Yeah, I do enjoy the debuffing archetype, especially like friendly fire debuffing. I was a fan of Hecate, but like I didn't like using her because you had to move her and she didn't have any expanded movement. And also like rolling for that 80% crit plus is kind of annoying. But like Hastur is like kind of insane as a debuff battery because not only is he like automatic, you don't have to move him, but all of his rates are like 100%. So that's really cool. Fusion and Madness together is basically staying in place. Yeah. If I didn't mention this before, but like other than like the opposite Halloween Azathoth, like taking in the debuffs and bringing them into like more damage, the widespread madness combined with the long slash weapon change just means that the enemies can't like ever reach you. So that's also another reason to slide them in if you have them. Can we pair Hastur with Summer Shenong or not a good idea? What does Summer Shenong do again? Poison reversal?
Yeah.
Poison reversal, and he gains additional damage versus every poison and fatal poison, and every fatal poison he inflicts is the unique variant, not the base variant. So, I guess Hastur would buff his damage a lot because he would apply poison, fatal poison, stigma, and weakness.
I mean, the issue is it's limited range, right? For both. Well, then again, I guess what's it called? Unless he's charging Shenong also has limited range.
Yeah, I guess that could work. Let's see. I really love using them with Mugen, Tangura. The kits feel fairly symbiotic. Tangura hits pretty hard with the extra debuffs. It can spread them easy for Hastur to wipe the rest with his multipliers. Not sure that I would like keeping Hastur at level 1 with a cheese though, because then his weapon changes only 50%. Yeah, for that stupid Hastur cheese thing, I guess you could just run like his 3-star version and like just keep him unskilled. Just for that stigma proc. I don't know if it's worth running it in the first place, but I guess it's an option if you want to do that. LifeWonders did quote-unquote fix Halloween Sandy. Yeah,
The infamous Sandy fix.
Spirit Matter real? Question mark. Sure. Hastur's weakness being one turn also lets Hecate rotate on everyone super easily.
Oh, that's true.
Or she can just AoE for 4 turns long. Madness.
Yeah, since her debuff lasts for a little while, even after she moves to someone
Yeah.
else. So they
It's
can
like
go another way.
5 turns, I think. I don't know. I just don't like using her still, just because I hate that 80% rate on her status. Same reason why I don't like using Pazuzu. Wait till the Mugen Tenga interaction only works the skill level 1 Hastur. That's correct. My bad weakness is right. What are we playing? Playing Tokyo Afterschool Summoners.
But yeah, Jabber,
This
there
is
was an interaction with Mugen Tangaroa and Hastur. Did you want to re-explain that, Harvey?
I think Camille can explain it better than I can, because he has personal experience with it.
Oh, so you want me to explain it? So what's to explain? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just try to re-explain it, I guess. Okay, so basically, Mugen Tanga has this thing where LifeWonders tried to code Mugen Tanga in a way that the debuffs would be negated. So for the defensive debuffs, what they would do they would look at the defensive multiplier of the debuff. So for example, Stigma's 2.3x, and to subtract it by 1.4x so that it gets to 0.9x. However, they incorrectly assumed that every stigma you get would be level 100. So if you had a level 1 stigma, which would have a defensive debuff multiplier of 1.15x, this would get subtracted to 1.4x being negative, which would mean that the damage would be 0. So if you have a lower if you have a low level debuff, like a level 1-2 stigma compared to level 100 stigma, this would mean that the multiplier that Mugen Tanga would see for his damage would be negative and hence 0 because there's no negative damage. And that's basically how the cheese works. It's basically just having low level status defensive debuffs. This is also why if you try to blossom do the blossom farm against Mugen Tanga with somebody like Christine back in the day, you would do 0 damage to the enemy Mugen Tanga because of that status if your Christine SALV wasn't high enough.
Did they ever fix that?
They just removed the status.
They removed.
They didn't fix Mugen Tanga itself. They just removed the status from the enemy Mugen Tanga, which is why I'm saying they're not gonna fix this unless they change the game entirely. Because there's no option to recreate this same behavior.
I see.
It's not
such a lazy thing.
Yeah, it's not it's not like Halloween Sandayu where you just go back in the code and then just change it. There just is nothing in the code to fix.
They would need to add new fields or something.
It's
just have
working
to
as
recode.
intended.
Yeah. So either LifeWonders puts in a lot of more code just for Mugen Tangaroa,
Which they already did in the first place.
or they're just gonna not fix it. So yeah.
It's so stupid. I'm kind of sad I don't have a 5-star Hastur or a Mugen Tangaroa now. I guess I can enjoy it with 3-star Hastur and someone else's Tangaroa.
That shouldn't work. I think I'm starting to see that Mugen Tenga was a mistake, but I still enjoy the debuffing archetype, even with that little whoopsie.
Look,
from
he's
Wonders.
he plays well and he's interesting design-wise, but the programming execution of it was absolutely shite.
Yeah, Mugen Tangaroa's programming was so awful even back then, and I complained about it. Because what they did was they changed every debuff in the game. Instead of just changing something with Mugen Tanga, they went through every debuff and made it conditional on his status.
To
So stupid.
it's the configuration or buffer boost or something, right?
Yeah, because conflagration, right, was like already conditional and buffer versus already conditional. So they just made like Bukintanga immune to buff reversal, and then they made Bukintanga's like own like debuff strengthening status conditional on conflagration, so you would see the same effect.
So stupid.
It was so trash.
It was so stupid. Okay. Every time the topic of his coding comes up, I always can't help but like pinch my facial muscles to the side, just being in pain thinking about it. You can continue reading the
Small indie company.
For real. Okay, you can continue reading chat. Sorry for that diversion.
Just as an aside, I'm surprised he's wood. This tentacle / slime is pretty close to the 0 element in color and is really prominent in his design. Yeah, I think Hastur being wood and limited is like the biggest surprise from News in 1. Because he was, in his 5-star art, he's like not color coded properly at all. There's like barely any green in there.
It means he's weak to Pazuzu.
Where's the green? He's wood. They're all color coded with their element. Why is he not color coded properly?
I feel like there's like some illustrators that are so committed to color coding them to attributes, like fucking Jiro with all the Hakenshi. And then there's others like fucking Bomb Bomb that just kind of doesn't give a shit and colors them whatever they want. And this is another case of that, evidently.
Mad. If he's limited, he should have it like a special element, so but whatever, I don't care anymore. Yellow Baiter. John Rivera, I guess, was surprised why not 0. It's like a barrier for damage with a debuff. Who do you guys think deserves a 4th unit? Seth and Nomad had 4 units, as well as most of the summoners. We don't talk about Agyu and R19 and Kijimuna.
Sheena.
I don't think anyone deserves a 4th unit. So not until people get their first variant, at least. Until that happens, yeah.
We hadn't had a second variant and a hot mid, hadn't we?
Yeah, the last one was like Christmas Showdown, wasn't it?
Jiraiya.
Yeah, with Jiraiya and Nomad.
Or Tadatome if you count that, but yeah.
Alright, Tadatome, I keep forgetting that he exists.
For good reason.
No.
For me, what kind of makes sense, because Hastur and Lovecraft is strongly tied to the curse to play and can cause madness and mind control people in possession of the text.
I don't see the connection to it, but okay.
Just skill seed her, Volos. Oh, so the skill level 1 Hastur is with an easy stigma access that will make it negative damage. That's very interesting. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's also pretty stupid. Aura laugh cute, maybe the base code is the problem.
You think I laugh cute, Harvey? Wow.
What?
Just kidding. Bad.
I'll strangle you. Wait, so it's skill or secret artifact level? It's both, depending on what is applying a debuff, I believe. Because with Christine's secret artifact level, if it's too low, then the weakness that she applies will be like will be at its full potency, so it'll end up causing like negative resistances for moving Tanga. Its skull at Jerber, seal level stigma is not in its charge. Green because pestilence.
See, I can see that wood being related to something like pestilence or something. But yeah, that is finally it for Hastur.
Did anyone make a Resident Evil joke?
Is there a Resident Evil joke to be made?
Only that the translation's bad and keeps calling him a walking Resident Evil, which I thought was funny.
Is that so?
Oh.
I need to read that. But yeah, that would be it for this discussion. We had a lot more to say than I thought with Hastur at the tail end, but for good reason. Thank you both for that very interesting finding. But yeah, so we will now be giving our final thoughts on overall this banner and just our feelings for this non-event or whatever it is. What do you guys think of this part 1 new semester banner overall?
Hastur
It's kinda
is
okay.
hot, and if you like him, you should pull him up. Everyone else kind of sucks.
I can say all the units are furries, which is pretty cool and decently like attractive. Unlike last new semester, which was just like, their kits was good, but half of them, more than half of them, I didn't really care about design-wise. So I like all the units design-wise here. And I think the kits themselves are a bit disappointing in terms of, I was hoping for something. We've like had an entire year or two now of Conquerors and Board Wipers, and then the 2 5-stars here is Conqueror and Board Wiper. A bit disappointing in that sense, but I guess that they're just really being redundant here. I hope there's something brand new from this patch too.
But they're new flavors of conquering and board writing.
Look, I gave that defense across the year. It's good to have variety, good to have more than one Conqueror and Board Wiper. Well, we've had plenty now, come on. We even have fucking odds at this point. Anyone can be a Board Wiper. That's very bizarre.
Well, I mean,
But
Team
Pazuzu
Debuffer is
is a
really unique, so I don't really mind for Hastur.
Yeah, I'll add that much. Hastur is very interesting. He's not really meant for board wiping, grinding at least. And I do think his 100% guaranteed all range is interesting, because that essentially just makes him a late, like, true and true all range unit. Like, no strings attached, no possible failure rate, no nothing. Which is interesting for sure. So for anything that's not just grinding immediately for ever since the first two turns as well, Hastur will just be an excellent unit to just dump a bunch of buffs in or something like that, presuming he doesn't shitfuck the person who's giving him the buffs.
I think he's gonna be pretty good as this Christmas Benton replacement if you're running her in dungeons. Because if you ran Christmas Benton, you kind of get to use Tinlos with her, so she wouldn't charge her skill. But Hastur just kind of gets all range after turn 2 forever, and with no strings attached. So you can just kind of use them to brain dead clear dungeons if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, I'd be down for that. More kits sort of like Hastur that's not necessarily for grinding, but still has very obviously strong utility outside of that. But still, board wiping or conquering is a bit depressing. I'm really hoping for something new in part 2, but we'll see.
Where's the new Lianan?
That was supposedly Kershaw, but again, that was more like Kote.
I don't know why everyone's saying that.
I mean, it's just what I read, even though I didn't really agree with it at all, just because...
Same.
Let's not get any more Lianan likes. Last new semester we got fucking Barong. I don't want any more Barongs, please.
Well, Kershaw's okay. It's just, he's not Barong tier. But yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to roll in this banner a bit more, but I need a save in case something happens.
Have you not
So
pulled
that's
for this
kind of
banner?
unfortunate. No, I pulled a bit more than I'd like to, but
Oh, I see.
I didn't get
more.
Hastur, so
Are you expecting
I
someone
don't really
for...
want to pull more.
Are you expecting someone for new semester 2 or something?
Well, I'd like to see new semester 2. Maybe the news will come in 2 days from now.
And my only real
hope
hope,
tonight.
hopefully, my only real hope for it is there's
But
no
the-
limited units. I'll just start in one multi and I'm out of there. I'm right done getting all the units for this event.
I don't know if that'll happen, but we can be on copium. But yeah.
Share the copium together.
I want Yuma, and that's about it.
Nice.
Yuma's okay.
But there should be an overlap between this banner and the new semester 2 banner. If from the end of maintenance to midnight Japan time. So that'll be around 4 to 6 hours. 6 if we're lucky. Yeah. Because that's how it's been for the past 2 years, is that new semester 1 and 2 banners overlap.
Oh, they have. I don't know where I got the dent overlap from, but that's good to know. Okay. So, save your stones, everyone, so that you'll be better informed.
That was probably from me because I overlooked that they overlap.
Oh. Well, they should have at least released the video before as well. the trailer of the units. So
Supposedly their
Maybe
data's
that'll-
already inside the game too, so some people have even gotten a chance to look at it. I'll just wait patiently though.
That's more of like a story thing, but yeah, sure.
Alright. Well, we already know who the next 4 units are, but no need to spoil it here since it's coming out in a few days anyways. But yeah. I think just not much to say about the event itself since it's not even an event, but it's nice that they made it a proper shop with, the amount of seeds you'd expect from a brand new event rather than just some side show campaign. And, the event bonuses are nice too.
Only half the tickets, though.
Oh, yeah, because there's only one type of resource.
For new Sim 2.
Yeah,
There's
I feel like maybe
there's
they'll
only
update the
one
shop.
resource, but they have both seeds, but only one resource, so they clearly could have just added more tickets. I demand more tickets.
I'm hoping they update the
they
shop.
actually might if they do new semester 2, but that might be copium from me.
Well, they need to update it with the new mats, don't they? So maybe they'll also
There's
add
new
some
mats?
tickets.
There should be if
I
the
don't
new
know,
attributes,
like,
right? There's
the
no
new
ones.
The mats from the other banner. I mean,
yeah, if they end up being
Oh,
not
yeah.
Acer or
Maybe
Warlord.
they're also the same elements
No,
and weapon
God, I
types.
I'm still mad they only put in 50
Oh,
fucking
that-
souls in the shop. What the hell?
okay. Also, with the event shop thing, don't the characters have shop lanes too? Why is it still Lil Solomon doing this thing?
Where are these generic lines from? I feel like I've heard them before, but I can't remember exactly where.
What generic lines?
Little Solomon's in the shop. I feel like I've heard them before. Like they were not made
Maybe
for
it's
this
in,
new
like
semester.
Maybe it's like a 3-star, 5-star ticket collector thing.
Oh yeah, that was it. God damn it. They really could have just included the shop lines from everyone else, but I don't know why they didn't. Anyway, it's nice they're treating this more like a proper event because, it's no longer in this weird campaign hell of us just logging in and seeing the banner and not really do anything. And it's not just a coin bonus in the end too, it's actually a full shop. So I'm happy with the direction they've taken since they've clearly gotten a bit lazier with the proper events like with Valentine's Snow Fights. So trying to, make something an event where normally it wouldn't be is something at least.
Maybe we'll get a CQ.
Oh man, I hope so.
Well,
That'd be
there
a
should
cool
have been
one.
a clash, right? Isn't it time for like clash stuff?
Clash of the Wonders maybe?
I guess
don't know.
they're
It is a good time
Yeah.
though.
maybe they're just not ready for it. But usually they do it around new semester, I thought. So
Well, what guild would we even fight? They've already done most of them.
The Beast Tamers, and then we can counter Hastur.
We already have Clash of the Beast Tamers.
Yeah, they need to update the current ones to include the new.
Oh, right.
ones.
The Wanderers, I don't know.
We fight a bunch of homeless people, I guess.
I think they showed their hand too soon for Clash of the Beast Tamers as well as Clash of the Creators, because now we just have a bunch of new ones and we still have those old ass ones.
I guess they could
Um,
update it like how they updated the Berserkers one to have Cthulhu, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, those are only like for
Just
one new
release a
unit
second one.
editions, right? Whereas it's like the Creators and the Beast
Creators
Tamers
is
got a bunch.
kind of like Creators is kind of hard to just add units. That one's like that, the magic range one.
Yeah, they would need to add in like a
So,
new
yeah,
phase or I don't know, but
Yeah,
uh,
a new phase, and then I don't know.
also
We'll get
that
to
you
use our
could be rewarded
shitty
nothing
combo
for it.
team against that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's supposedly the affiliation thing coming soon, right?
I
So,
hope there's something on that.
Maybe
yeah.
we'll see something happen with that for like
We'll fight
Pazuzu
Ben
and
10's
Hastur.
band.
That's like
Oh my
the big
God.
promise of this year for gameplay wise, I would say, is the affiliation thing. Of course, we're gonna maybe get chapter 14, but that's not really new gameplay, right? That's just more story. So I'm interested in seeing
It is for everyone else.
Yeah. Anyways, we're getting a bit sidetracked from the main topic, but I think we gave all our thoughts for this campaign that is actually an event or feels like an event. So I'll just close up the stream then. Thank you for joining this discussion, everyone. It's always fun to do these, especially during dead periods, but I feel like we had a fun amount of time during this almost event that we're holding up perfectly fine. I do feel bad that Irby couldn't join us today, so I probably should have mentioned from the beginning, but Irby couldn't make it because he died or something.
Remember, you posted the stream on Easter. What do you mean?
Yeah, he could get this Easter. Same thing. Jesus died on Easter, right? There you go.
Easter with
Is
Frighten.
it Resurrection?
Yeah, or something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all our thoughts for this discussion. Join us again, presumably next week, or either that or 2 weeks from now for the next New Semester banner. And we'll try to figure out, hopefully we'll be lucky enough to be able to squeeze in part 2 of the tier list stream as well. But until then, that's it from all of us. So we are on our way out. Thanks everyone, and we'll just say our byes.
Are you going to read the comments?
Oh my god!
There's a second time you've forgotten the comments.
I'm sorry, it's just this tier list stream has totally taken me out of my usual groove when we read none of it at all. Where were the comments anyways?
It's
but-
okay aside from Nobu.
Waiting for New Semester 2, bye bye guys. It's okay, aside from Nobu, he's epic. Waiting for Emo, I only called because Tanjiro Mugen. He's not in this matter though. Glad we finally got SCP-701. Does anyone know what that one does? Probably some sort of biohazard one, honestly. Probably would have skipped it if it weren't for Hastur being limited. I might have, honestly, too. The kids looked interesting, but not enough for me to spend like 2 multis on and 17 tickets to choose. What would you generally want then? Buffers, or I would see, it's like a paired in question because I want new units that aren't just board wipers for comp cares, but at the same time I would also want new quests that would have new paradigms for like a different optimal case. And what those quests would be, that's a whole different question. But yeah. Let's all take off. I'm still on Marchocopium, aren't we all? I dropped by because Harvey will. Thanks for the stream. Hey, look at you, Harvey. Got a popular fan base right here.
Wait, who are you? I don't know who you are.
Rude.
Who? I don't know who JR is.
Junior. I don't know. Update the shop. Hopefully they do. Only if the event gets extended. Thanks for watching the stream, and the viewers watching this, ignore what they said. Spend all your stones now on Hastur. Gambler's fallacy. Hopefully you don't end up, falling into depression after you go back and watch the Nobumichi part. But yeah, pull for Hastur, definitely. Maybe the Clash will be a New Semester part 2. Maybe. 90% of the cameras quit before they make it big. Rip be dead. So sad. Guess we gotta take them treating off if they are. As a side note, if any of you are fan art, we love free art, so I'd be willing to put it up for free. I know, very attractive incentive. But later, bye guys. We'll test her because it's time. Sorry for the confusion. I see. Anyway, yeah, for real this time. Let's say our byes. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye.
Bye.
Excellent.